I've been talking a lot this year about the crazy weather that I have seen in my travels and how it's just been getting worse over the 6 years that I've been on the road. Everything from being run out of an entire state because the forests are closed, because of wildfires, because of the drought conditions, to derechos and tornadoes and crazy thunderstorms. I mean, it's just been really, really crazy. And I keep talking about how climate change is here. It's a fact. It's a fact. And how we kind of need to start recognizing that and accepting that it's a fact of life. And of course, then the question comes, well, how the hell can you be talking about climate change when you drive something that's only 8 miles to the gallon? And that's a fair argument. That's definitely fair. Does it make me look like a hypocrite? On the surface, I think maybe, but I think there's a lot more to my life that many of you have heard me talk about that offsets the horrible gas mileage that I get. And I think just looking at my gas mileage is just part of the picture. My RV life is about a whole set of choices, a whole set of lifestyle changes that I have made that I think offset my horrible gas mileage. So I've got 8 different things that I do that I'm going to talk to you about today that offset my gas mileage, and I think actually help the environment in ways that you may not even be thinking about. So let's go ahead and get started talking about that. But first, I want to tell you about a fundraiser that I've been doing through the month of June for Pride Month. So the Trevor Foundation is a foundation that helps LGBTQ youth who are struggling with all kinds of services, including suicide hotlines and counselors and all kinds of things. And any of you who have been following me for a while know that I was a very troubled youth. And while LGBTQ issues were not what I faced a lot of issues, and I know what it's like to feel like an outsider, to feel alone, to feel depressed. And so this month I have been donating a portion of all of my sales of my Pride shirt. Check this out. Isn't this awesome? Donating 10% of all my profits to the Trevor Foundation through the month of June. So I'll put a link in the video description so that you can shop the shirts and mugs and all kinds of cool stuff to show your alliance of pride, of pride, of LGBTQ. Show that you're an ally, or that maybe you're out and proud. The other thing is, this Sunday, I am doing a live stream fundraiser for the Trevor Foundation. So at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 9 Pacific Time, noon Eastern Time. I totally did that backwards. No matter what YouTube says, those are the times. 9 Pacific, noon Eastern. I will be doing pancakes and pride. So bring your breakfast, bring your coffee. I'm going to be making pancakes, and I'm going to be doing a live stream, and I will not have any super chat turned on. I will ask anything that you might have given to me to go ahead and donate to the Trevor Project instead. So join me. I'll put a link in the video description for the live stream on Sunday morning, and I look forward to seeing you there. So let's get started. Hey friendlies, I'm Carolyn. Welcome back to my life living in an RV full time. So today we're talking about my carbon footprint living in an RV. And a lot of people want to look at the RV, see 8 miles to the gallon, and automatically assume that I am a gross contributor to climate change and global warming, and even calling me a hypocrite. And, there might be some truth in that, but I'm talking today about all the ways that I offset my carbon footprint, offset my 8 miles to the gallon. And I'm doing this because I know a lot of you might be thinking about RV life, you might be trying to decide what to live in, and you might be worried about only getting 8 miles to the gallon. And then, there are also others who just don't get it. And there are so many of us living this lifestyle now. Everybody does it different. So today I'm just going to talk about how I do RV life and why I think, even though I'm only getting 8 miles to the gallon, why I think that a lot of my other lifestyle choices are offsetting that, and I'm still contributing to lowering carbon global warming stuff. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about the reality. Let's talk about the common sense logistics of my life. I live in 190 square feet. The average American home is, where did I see? In 2019, the most recent year which data was available, the average square footage of a house was 2,300 square feet. 2,300 square feet. I live in less than a tenth of, like 5% of that. Think about all that goes into building, first of all, building a 2,300 square foot home, maintaining a 2,300 square foot home. And I'm going to talk about a lot of the details of that in a minute. I live in 190 square feet, which means just in the essence of my living, my everyday life, my footprint is less than 5% of the average American. Think about that. So yeah, do I get 8 miles to the gallon where most cars are getting, 30 or 40? Yeah, but 5% 5% of the average American carbon footprint just in my living situation. That's pretty significant. So that's a huge offset right there. So now I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. First of all, renewable energy. Did you know that generating power for your house and office buildings and all the stores that you shop at and the restaurants that you eat at, street lights, things like that, generating power is one of the biggest causes of climate change. Yeah, generating power to live in your 2,000 square foot house. Maybe all of you may not live in 2,000 square feet, but generating that power is one of the biggest causes of climate change. Generating electricity and heat by burning fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas causes a large chunk of global emissions. Most electricity is still produced from fossil fuels. Bet you didn't know that, right? And only a quarter comes from wind, solar, and other renewable sources. I am 90% renewable. 90% of the energy I use comes from the sun. 10% comes from propane. I just refilled my propane tank, so propane runs my stove, my heat, and my refrigerator. And I use about 10 gallons of propane in about a month. Think about that, right? So if I'm 90% off-grid, solar, renewable energy, the average house, 2,000 square feet, using traditionally generated power, that's a huge impact on global warming and the carbon footprint. Huge. And again, less than 5%, okay? So I am mostly renewable energy, okay? 90% of everything I do runs on solar. The second way that I offset my horrible gas mileage is through the amount of water I use. Did you know that saving water reduces carbon pollution? It does. Yep. It's because it takes a lot of energy to pump, heat, and treat your water. Again, those of you who live traditional in sticks and bricks lives, that water doesn't just magically appear in your faucet. It has to be pumped. It has to be cleaned. It has to be processed. And then how much are your water heater running constantly so that you have hot water on demand? I never have hot water. It's part of the reason I don't use as much propane. I only turn on hot water if I'm going to take a shower. And usually what I do when I boil water in the morning for my coffee, I use a cup of hot water to take a bath. That's how I live. This is the reality of my life. Again, you look on the surface, you see 8 miles to the gallon without looking at the details of actually how I live. So that's huge. So I use, do you have any idea how much water I use per day? Those of you who watch me might know. I use about 4 gallons of water a day. I have a 42-gallon tank. I fill up my water every 10 to 14 days, depending on how much I conserve and what time of year it is. In the summer, we use a little bit more. Sadie and we drink a lot more water. Yeah. So I use 4 gallons of water per day. Any guesses how many gallons of water the average shower uses? 8-minute shower? 17 gallons. Your shower uses more water than I use in 4 days. Yeah, that's huge, right? A toilet flush is 1.6 gallons. You flush the toilet 3 times in a day, you're using more water than I do in an entire day. So these, I said, these are all the ways I offset. So, and I take water rationing to exponentially, like to a science. That was word salad. I bathe in a cup of water, literally about a cup of water. I can wash my hair in about a half gallon of water. I live off grid. 99% of the time, I live off grid, as far away from society as I can get, with 42 gallons of water, and I want to make that last as long as I can. I've never even washed my RV. That's one time. That's a lie. I washed my RV when I got off the Dalton Highway in Alaska because I had to, because the stuff they use on the road will eat away your undercarriage. So I had to wash it. I've had this RV 5 years. That's the only time I've ever washed it, because I don't care how it looks. I don't need my RV to look clean. I mean, I go off-road. I drive it like a Jeep. It doesn't need to look clean. And to me, the other day I was like, it is kind of grungy. I should probably wash it. But it's going to get dirty in a day. So why bother? And sure enough, the next day it rained and I was on muddy roads and it was a mess again. So I take water conservation very, very seriously. 4 gallons of water a day. I do laundry once every 4 to 6 weeks. And I throw everything in the biggest washer I can find. So you want to talk about another way that I save water. And again, saving water reduces carbon pollution. So that's another way I offset my horrible gas mileage, just in the way I live my life. My lifestyle is about using less fossil fuels and resources and things like that. Now, the third way that I offset my horrible gas mileage, just in the way I live my life, is less food waste. Did you know that about 10% of U.S. energy goes into growing, processing, packaging, and shipping food? 40% of that ends up in the landfill, right? 10% of U.S. energy goes into growing food, packaging, processing, transporting, and 40% of that food is going to end up in the landfill. I do my best. Of course, composting would be the best case scenario, but as a nomad, I can't compost. At least I haven't found a way to do it yet. And that waste, that food waste in the dumps, releases methane, which impacts global warming. Yeah. So I have less food waste. I buy a lot of vegetables. And I try to use everything I can and not throw it away. I use the stems of my broccoli. I use the stems of my cilantro. I try to use everything as much as I can. I'm not perfect. There are people who have like zero waste, but I'm mindful. That's the thing about it. I am mindful about how much I waste, and I try to use everything that I buy so that less goes into the landfills. That's not perfect, but it is something that I try to do. So that's another way. Less food waste is another way that I offset my high gas mileage. The fourth way, and this is a big one, and those of you who follow me know I talk about this quite a bit. The fourth way that I offset my carbon footprint is conscious consumerism. What does that mean? Did you know that manufacturing and industry produce emissions mostly from burning fossil fuels to produce energy for making cement, iron, electronics, steel, plastic, clothes, and other goods? So think about all of the resources, the energy, the resources, the transportation that goes into all of the things that you buy. And everybody who's been following me for a while, this whole part of my life is about buying less. Reassessing need versus want. If I want to buy some new clothes, mostly what I buy these days are like stuff from my own store or souvenirs. I know that when I go someplace really cool, I'm going to want a souvenir. So I buy clothes because I know I'll wear it. I literally wear my clothes until they're falling apart. This morning I just threw away a pair of leggings that they've had a hole in one of the legs for a long time, but the whole other leg started to rip apart. I literally wear my clothes until they're falling apart. I wear stained clothes. I go up on my roof and I get putty and stuff all over my clothes. I don't just throw them away. I keep wearing them, mostly because I live alone and it doesn't matter. I don't buy things I don't need. That, not never, but I'm much more conscious about the choices, the buying choices that I make. You know, my phone is 4 years old, something like that. And I'm not going to rush out, even though I'd like a better camera on my phone. I'm not going to rush out and buy a new phone. I think about things before I buy them. Do I really need this? Do I really need another new pair of shoes? Do I really need another hoodie? Do I really need another set of sheets or whatever? So conscious consumerism is a huge way that I offset my gas mileage. I buy a lot less than the average American because I am more conscious about want versus need. I don't buy a lot of new clothes. I don't buy things. For one thing, I don't have room for things. I don't buy knickknacks. I don't buy crap, really. So that's a huge impact. Think about transporting. You want to talk about my 8 miles to the gallon. Think about all of the carbon emissions from transporting all the crap in your house, okay? All the food that you buy that ends up in the garbage. All of the electronics that you buy that end up in the landfill, all of the knickknacks, the things that break, whatever that is. I even try to fix things. If something breaks, I try to fix it before I buy a new one. So our purchasing choices as Americans have a huge impact on global warming. And the less you buy, the less of an impact you're going to have on global warming. Another purchasing decision, when I talk about conscious consumerism, I don't buy chemicals. Very rarely. I buy bleach every once in a great while. When I buy cleaning products, I buy plant-based, all natural, no parabens. That's also a huge impact on the environment. I don't buy a lot of chemicals. And those chemicals end up in your drain, they end up in the ground, they end up in dumps, they end up hurting the environment. So that's another conscious consumerism choice, a conscious consumer choice that I make. I don't buy chemicals. Everything I buy, I try to buy as much natural. My hair care products, it's all natural, plant-based, as much as I can. Number 5, the 5th way that I offset my gas mileage is through less garbage. So I talked a minute ago about less food waste, where I try to use as much of the food that I buy. I try to use as much and throw away. Did you know the average American produces 4.5 pounds of garbage per day? Per day. That garbage, again, goes into the landfill, producing methane, whatever. There's no way I produce 4.5 pounds of garbage a day. That would mean by the time I leave a campsite in 10 days, I have 45 pounds of garbage. And I definitely do not. Probably a third of that. And the way I reduce my garbage is not buying as much. A lot of that garbage comes from packaging of the things that we buy, the food that we throw away, the packaging on the food. I try to buy whole foods as much as possible. Not great at that. I still like my canned beans. That's the other thing, like a lot of the things I'm like, well, okay, I shouldn't buy canned beans. I should make my own beans. But then the water and the propane that goes into cooking those beans, and I know a pressure cooker. I know there's a lot of other things I could do. But overall, I do try to, I'm very conscious of the packaging of the food that I buy. I'm starting to make my own salsa now rather than buy salsa. When I do buy something in a plastic container, I reuse that plastic container over and over and over again until it breaks. So I'm, again, very conscious about the amount of waste that I am producing through my buying decisions. Again, it's conscious consumerism. I see something on a shelf that's in a plastic container versus a cardboard container or a metal container. I'm going to choose the cardboard or the metal, even if it costs a little bit more. Again, I'm a very conscious liver. Everything that I do in my life is a conscious choice, a conscious acknowledgement that I have choices. Does that make sense? So yeah, there's a lot more to my RV life than how much my truck gets per mileage, per gallon of gas. The sixth way, and I think this is a pretty big one. This is going to be very controversial. This whole video is going to be very controversial. But the sixth way that I offset my gas mileage is by what I eat. And people get really upset every time I even mention that I eat a mostly vegan diet. Let me tell you something. I'm talking about my choices. Just because I choose to eat a vegan diet does not mean I'm judging you. I'm not. It's amazing in the history of veganism how offended people get whenever you just mention you're vegan. I'm not judging you. This is just my choice. So yes, what I eat is a huge balancing of the emissions from my vehicle. Eating a plant-based diet and more whole foods, eating more vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, and less meat and dairy can significantly lower your environmental impact. Producing plant-based foods generally results in fewer greenhouse gas emissions and requires less energy, land, and water. So I've done videos about this before. The commercial beef industry is one of the biggest contributors to methane gas. All of the things that go into, it's a huge waste of water. There's just a lot that goes into the commercial cattle industry. If you want to raise your own cows on your own farm and do it, that's a much better way to do it. But the commercial cattle industry is horrific for the environment and the planet. Horrific. I'm not judging. I'm just talking facts. So my decision to not eat animal products, I don't eat anything that comes from an animal, whether that an animal was killed in the process or not. I don't eat dairy. I don't eat eggs. I don't eat meat. So that it's in itself is a huge offset of my carbon emissions from my truck. And that's a huge way that I contribute to lessening global warming by eating more whole foods, more beans, more grains, and more vegetables. Also, one of the biggest contributors to climate change is cutting down forests. We cut down forests and trees, which give us oxygen and clean the air, and we cut those down for pastures. I'm in a national forest now, and the cows are just running rampant all over the place, pooping all over the place, tearing up the forest. There's all kinds of clearing in the forest, clearing out trees and stuff like that for the cows to graze, and that is a huge impact on global warming. The another way that I eat that impacts global warming or lessens my impact on global warming is that I eat mostly organic. I eat as much organic as I can. It's a little harder now. It's really expensive. Groceries are really expensive, so I'm cutting back on that a little bit. But overall, I still buy mostly organic. And that lessens the impact on the environment because we're not using pesticides, right? Organic agriculture can be a big part of the solution, and it helps tackle climate change because it reduces greenhouse gas emissions. So again, eating plant-based, eating mostly whole foods, and eating organic are huge contributors to helping lessen carbon emissions in the air and reducing global warming. Number 7. Let's talk about my 8 miles to the gallon. Let's put this in perspective and give it some context about 8 miles to the gallon and what that means driving my house everywhere I go. Number 1, I am a one-car family. I don't have a Toad. I don't have another car. I am a one-car family. Of course, I'm only one person. Sadie can't drive yet. But the average American family has 2 cars. Which even if you're getting 40 miles to the gallon, that's double the emissions, right? You're both driving to work. You're both going and doing your thing. You're going and, driving the kids here and there, or going to get groceries, or going out with your friends. You have double the mileage that I have in a 2-car family. So even if you're getting 40 miles to the gallon, you're putting double the emissions into the environment, okay? I'm only one person. I sit in one place in the forest as long as I can. I go run all my errands at once. I do mostly highway driving. I maintain my vehicle. I use synthetic oil. instead of real oil, even though it's more expensive. So you got to kind of put in context the 8 miles to the gallon in the context of my lifestyle. I'm not commuting to work every day, getting 8 miles to the gallon. I'm not even going into town every day, getting 8 miles to the gallon. I'm going in once every 10 days, you know, unless I'm on a road trip. But last year, going to the East Coast, I didn't want to drive every day. You know, it was just the logistics of finding camping. So yeah, you kind of have to put my whole 8 miles to the gallon in context of my whole entire lifestyle. I mean, if you just look at 8 miles in a gallon as in a traditional sticks and bricks civilization that we live in, yeah, it's horrible. But when you take all these other factors into consideration about how I really live my life, how I'm more minimalist than 99% of Americans, how I live in less than 5% of the space of most Americans, how the choices that I make about what I buy and what I eat impact my impact on the environment. All of those play a big, huge factor in my carbon footprint. And you can't just take one piece of that in a tunnel, in a vacuum, and say, oh my God, it's horrible, you're a hypocrite, when I'm making all these other decisions that lessen my impact on the environment. And finally, number 8, and I did some research, like how can I reduce my carbon footprint? And one of the ways they said you can help is to talk about it. And that's what I'm doing. And that's what I have been doing. I talk about the changes that I'm seeing. I mean, it's not just secondhand. I am out here living it, living among the environment. In the environment, I am seeing these changes. And living in an RV, traveling from state to state, I am impacted by it. So not only am I talking about it, I'm showing you, I am bringing you along with me so that you can see this is happening. It's not a lie. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not some left-wing agenda to take away your motorcycles. I don't know what the motive would be for lying about global warming. It's not a lie. So the 8th way that I impact global warming is by talking about it. I am fortunate that I have a platform that I can share my thoughts and opinions and feelings and experiences and show you what's going on out here. And so that's probably another really big way that I impact it. Even if people can't hear me now, maybe just by seeing it, it'll start to seep in. And I love being able to use my platform. You guys know. That's why I love doing what I do, is that I get to have a platform to talk about things that are important to me. And, despite trying to be quieted and shut down and bullied and harassed and all the other things, I am not. Actually, it's made me stronger. The more people tell me to stop talking about things, I don't come here for politics. Okay, well, you're blocked. I'm reading a book now, and go off on a tangent. I'm reading a book called Women on the Internet. And it's about how horribly women are treated online. You know, if you ever want to know what we deal with, it's not pretty. And they talk about everything. They talk about, they're way more famous than I am. And they talk about all the horrible things that they have dealt with being online. It's exactly the same thing I have had. And the bottom line is that as women on the internet, people want to shut us down. And I will not be shut down. The more people tell me to shut up, the louder I speak. So I am using my platform to talk about things that matter, and I'm using my platform to talk about the fact that global warming is here, it's real, and we all need to pay attention to the choices that we make. So yeah, do I wish I got better gas mileage? Absolutely. But am I aware that my gas mileage is horrible and its contribution to global warming? Absolutely. And so that, therefore, I am even more diligent about all the other choices that I make in my life to make sure I am reducing that impact as much as possible. All right. I hope this was helpful. I hope this gave you food for thought. And if you have questions or you want to share your experience, feel free to leave them below. My choices are not up for debate or discussion. This is merely to help people navigate your own choices and your own decisions, and to maybe help you understand the lifestyle a little bit more for some of us. Not everybody lives their life this way. There are people out there in these $200,000 rigs who are still not very minimalist. Let's just put it that way. I am not one of them. I'm very conscious about the choices that I make, and my choices are not up for debate. This is my life. I don't want advice. I don't want opinions. This is just me sharing to try to help and inform. Thank you all so much for being here. Don't forget to check out the Pride merchandise and join me on Sunday for the live stream. All the information will be in the video description. I appreciate everyone who is here. It means the world to me that you're in my little corner of my little friendly universe. And until next time, be happy, be free, and be happy, be free, and be kind. See you soon.